Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, I always love a great question or comment or contribution to this YouTube channel. So how do you chip in? It's simple. Call 1-833-4-BRODY. That number goes straight to voicemail. Then you leave an outstanding message. I listen to all of them. I get to play and respond to the very best ones here on future videos.
Hello, this is Sean from Stamford, Connecticut. I was wondering if you could shed some light on the NFL banning some celebrations this year and what you think about, celebrations being flagged and fined for players for them executing them, like the Antonio Brown jumping on the goalpost celebration. What's your thoughts on it? Have a good day. Bye.
Hey, Sean, thanks for the call. Thanks for bringing this up. Quite honestly, the NFL's not really ban, but crackdown is something I wasn't even necessarily aware of until I listened to your message. I did a little research. I found more details, which I'm about to present. And by the way, that Antonio Brown reference, was that like 10 years ago now? He was with the Steelers. I think it was late in a Sunday night game. He scores a touchdown. He jumps right up on the field goal post. The officials throw a flag. They thought that wasn't warranted for the situation, maybe just considering the game circumstances. But that's what we're talking about here. Celebrations after a touchdown, celebrations after an interception. Where is the line? What crosses the line? Is the NFL kind of redrawing the line, or are they trying to get ahead of the curve in what they don't want to see happen here? I know the headlines are going to read that the NFL is banning certain celebrations or banning celebrations entirely. What I see them doing here is trying to get ahead of problems before they actually happen. They're trying to crack down on certain themes of celebrations that they don't think are appropriate and they don't want to see. Walt Anderson is an NFL rules analyst who mostly deals with the officials and how they handle these in-game situations. And Walt had this very interesting yet straightforward quote, which said, "Unsportsmanlike gestures like simulating either shooting a gun or brandishing a gun, or inappropriate gestures like a throat slash or unfortunate sexual gestures, those were up 133%, I'm guessing since last season. So that is a point of emphasis." By the way, is the NFL keeping stats or records or tabulations of celebrations and the type of demographics they fall under? Like, which box does this celebration check? Was this one innocent? Was this one a little too much? Did it cross a line? Like, the NFL apparently is paying attention to recording the types of celebrations that happen. If they can produce the stat that those types of acts were up 133%, certainly we're not asking for that as fans, but the fact that the NFL is keeping detailed track of that is certainly interesting and noteworthy. Walt went on to say, quote, "The officials have made it a point of emphasis to the clubs. It's just one of those areas that the league wants to actively work on. There are plenty of ways for players to be able to celebrate, and they come up with some very unique and often entertaining ways. So we want them to focus on those and not the inappropriate areas." And by the way, I should have gone into a little bit more detail there. I'm not promoting or condoning the ability to do anything you want in a celebration. There are some unwritten rules. It's kind of unfortunate that the NFL has to actually write a few of these rules down so they're not unwritten, so that they're not gray areas, so that they're very clear. They're literally black and white. You can see the type of themes and gestures that are not allowed. That's what Walt had to say. Here's Troy Vincent, who is an executive of the National Football League. Quote, "There's no place in the game to be standing over your opponent." Now, I assume he means this is more of the taunting variety. You knock somebody down, you score a touchdown, they're on the ground, you're standing, you stand right over them. Of course, that is insulting in the moment, and especially when adrenaline is running high and emotions are running high. What is that asking for, to be honest? There's no place in the game to have violent gestures. That's not the game of football. I mean, I've seen a linebacker make some tackles before. That is a pretty violent gesture, but I understand what he's saying. The extracurriculars after the whistle, there's not necessarily a place for that. That's not the game of football. We just have to play by the rules, respect your opponent, respect your teammates, and play the game in between the whistles. Troy here is kind of saying even celebrations don't feel maybe warranted or welcomed. At least that's the way I'm reading this quote word for word, more so than what we saw right before that. So here are my thoughts. Here are my takeaways on the celebration crackdown. I'm not calling it a celebration ban in the NFL. I'm calling it a crackdown. The league has obviously expanded its prohibited acts, and they've informed the players, they've told the teams accordingly, so there should be no question going into this season like, hey, if you do this, there's probably going to be an even more harsh penalty for the reaction of it, the aftermath of it. It's not going to be just washed away. We're not going to forget about this. We've made it very clear that we have expanded what's against the rules, what's against what we want, so please don't do it, otherwise the penalty will be greater. There was also this nose wipe gesture, which apparently several players did. I'm not even going to reproduce it here for you on camera, but it was said to be affiliated with gangs. The NFL obviously wanted that to go away as soon as possible, too. Whether it just had to be, whether it was coincidental or whether there actually was some connection, obviously the NFL wants no part of that affiliation. Sometimes, I think the biggest point I could make here is that sometimes unwritten rules in all of this just aren't enough. You would think that gun stuff, violent stuff, slashing a throat stuff, sexual acts and representing them to the point of like this is also a little bit of a family-friendly environment. Some of that stuff should be unwritten rules that we don't really need to even write down. But apparently in 2025, we actually do need to write all of these things down to make it clear, to draw the lines. And I also want to take the understanding of this, to be creative, to be entertaining, to be a true show person, like you have to push limits sometimes. You have to get noticed, or you do something that maybe you didn't think was appropriate, but that the general public does. So maybe the NFL here is trying to outline a few sensitive areas, things that they saw an increase of that they didn't like, and they just want to let everybody know they're not good with this. I also want to point out that if the NFL really does want to focus on the good of celebrations, which I think they should, after a touchdown, after an interception, after a sack, you name it, give it some time. I mean, for those who complain that celebrations are already too much and we don't need this in football, what are we talking about here? 7 seconds, 9 seconds, a dozen seconds after a play? If you've got the time to roll in a 20-second commercial between snaps, like during the game, then you have time, in my opinion, to watch somebody celebrate an amazing accomplishment of, I don't know, a pick six that they ran back for a touchdown. Let them celebrate for 10 seconds. Do it on camera. I don't care if it's orchestrated or coordinated. Do it. Don't do it necessarily to taunt the other team. Do it in your own spot and then get off the field. Don't pause the game. Don't delay the game. Like special teams is going to have to come on for the kick and all that stuff. So there is some time to do this. Take advantage of the time. Go do it in a corner. Do it on the sidelines, whatever. I love to see it. Let's make the NFL more entertaining, more personable, more enjoyable. Absolutely. The NFL should find more ways if they want to make these barriers of things that they don't find appropriate, which I agree and I totally understand. Also, at the same time, you could kind of divert and say, well, we do want to give you the time to do the right things, to do the fun things in the certain situations. This is always going to be a judgment call. Again, we're talking about, vague limitations here of things that the league doesn't want, but we're going to get like new things, new celebrations that come up that weren't listed here. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, was that the right time or situation or was that appropriate? You'll never have a full list of everything that's right or wrong for a celebration that the NFL will or won't allow. Somebody's always going to be creative and come up with something new. So it's always going to be a judgment call, but we just want to understand the boundaries. What's good, what's not good, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and generally where things fall so it's kind of predictable. That would be the best case scenario. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Also, while you're down there, thumbs up. That helps me, this video, and this channel. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you back here next time.